What's up, party people, and welcome back to another episode of NYC Foodways, your weekly food and culture discussion from the cultural capital of the world. My name is John, and this week's episode is dedicated to Aaron Ralston, who cut his own arm off after being pinned under a rock for 127 hours. Your MCM could never. What do you consider to be the ultimate in homegrown American foodways? Watching Les Blanc's charming and delicious 1990 short film Yum Yum Yum, A Taste of Cajun and Creole Cooking will likely give you some thoughts on the matter. You may remember director Les Blanc from such Filmways episodes as Garlic is as Good as 10 Mothers, and he's back, a little more than a decade later, with this delightful rural banquet of a documentary that looks at the culture and cuisine of Louisiana's Cajun and Creole populations. Clocking in at just under 30 minutes, this film is deceptively simple, but its flavors decidedly rich, much like the cuisines it examines. Before we dig into the film itself, let's define the peoples we are discussing. The Cajuns of Louisiana are a racially homogeneous ethnic group descended from the French settlers who emigrated to Louisiana in the mid-18th century from the region of Canada then known as Acadia. They have their own language, Cajun French, speak their own dialect of English, Cajun English, and sport a wealth of beautiful cultural pathways, not least among them their food. This group is concentrated in the largely rural part of Louisiana known as Acadiana. The Creole people of Louisiana are a racially admixed group descended from, in the main, French, Spanish, African, and indigenous peoples, with a smaller infusion of German, Irish, and Italian bloodlines. This group speaks, or used to at least, a now critically endangered French-based Creole language and practices their own distinct group of cultural traditions, including, of course, foodways. Louisiana's Creoles are more diffuse in their geography and are present in both urban and rural parishes, including heavy representation in and around New Orleans. Now, onto the film. The more I see of Les Blanc's work, the more I am in awe of his prowess. He has the singular ability to gain the trust of his subjects, which is pretty important when you want to get into someone's kitchen. So into the kitchens we go. Well, kitchens are loosely speaking here, as a lot of the food prepared in this film is done in a variety of settings, from the fast-paced line of a commercial restaurant all the way down, and I mean that only in the technological sense, to the classic, pots al fresco suspended over an open wood fire. The scenes of ingredient preparation, cooking, and eating are frequent in this movie, and provide us with another refreshing analog break from the ubiquity of digital YouTube cooking and food videos. Very few of the people we see cooking are professionals in any sense of the word, yet nearly everything they prepare looks jaw-droppingly delicious. We'll be rating the following on the official NYC Foodways urge to take a bite out of the nearest food source when the dishes appear on screen scale. Let's begin. Here we have goût Kobiang with rice. Goût is another name for the black drumfish, and Kobiang is a classic Cajun tomato-based stew. Next up is a preparation of pan-fried fish with crawfish. The French Quarter restaurant I worked in for many years served a variation of this dish, only with crab meat instead of crawfish. I was never a fan, but it was exceedingly popular with diners. Arriving to the table now is a plate of deep-fried soft-shell crab with sautéed vegetables. Soft-shell crab has been a favorite of mine since I was a child, though this one is perhaps a bit heavy on the breading. Oh man, crab legs with aioli. I love this stuff, and my preferred place to get it is in the famed Casamentos of New Orleans. Yeah, so this one is called barbecue shrimp. If you know, you know. When the good Lord made me, he saw that his creation was perfect and imbued me with a single flaw. I'm allergic to shrimp, but can eat all other types of shellfish without issue. Isn't that special? My goodness. Check out this outlandish agglomeration of God knows what topped with crab meat and crawfish. Holy cow, does it look good. Okay, in fact, it's the filling for crab and shrimp crepes. It still looks good. I'd even risk an evening of ill health just to try this dish out. Dirty rice is a standby around town in New Orleans, and the cook here is kind enough to share her version's ingredients. Giblets are a nice touch. Dang, the home-built backyard barbecue pit, the clearly homemade marinade, the perfect char. There's nothing particularly Louisiana about this setup, but I'd be remiss not to share it with you. So many high ratings. If you're concerned we're diluting the power of an NYC Foodways endorsement with all this hyperbolic talk, don't be. It's simply a testament to the power of Cajun and Creole cooking. Yes, it's just that good. Moving on to Okra Etouffee with shrimp. I appreciate the effort, but there's too many shrimp here for your boy. Chicken sauce piquante is a rich, fragrant, tomato-based chicken stew I'd say is roughly the poultry version of the typically fish-based Kobiang. But I invite the enormous Cajun viewership of NYC Foodways to correct me if I'm wrong here. I've eaten one in its natural setting in Cajun country, shout out to Vincent, and it was amazing. Here we have crawfish etouffee, and this version looks way better than anything I ever had in New Orleans. You can practically smell the onions browning. Unreal. Perhaps it's the year-long caloric deficit talking, but the sight of a carbohydrate drenched in cane syrup, honey, and butter was enough to make me literally start drooling when this one appeared on screen. Next up are some beach boiled shrimp and crab. I appreciate the cooking technique, over an opening flame right there on the sand, but I never really got the taste for boiled shellfish. And maybe this makes me forever a New Yorker, but that includes boiled crawfish. I always appreciated the social aspect of the crawfish boil, but from a gustatory standpoint, the rest of what was boiled, generally, chunks of corn on the cob, sausage, mushrooms, potato, and artichokes always held greater appeal. Side note, Les Blanc makes a brief cameo in this film, just for a few frames, chowing down on boiled crawfish. All right, now here's some good stuff. Boudin, the classic Cajun sausage made with pork, rice, and organ meat, along with various herbs and spices. This food holds heavy cultural significance to the Cajuns. If you don't eat boudin on Saturdays, they probably won't bury you if you die, one jokes. Check out this gumbo made entirely from scratch. My goodness. Is there any dish more emblematic of the long-simmered cultural admixture of Louisiana? Here we have braised cow tongue. This version looks much better than the Ashkenazi deli one, and I would absolutely give it a try if I were given the opportunity. Since no dessert is on the menu tonight, we'll end this meal with an amphibian. This is frog legs etouffee. I happen to enjoy eating frog, and though the preparation here looks just okay, much respect to the chef for doing the most with what would consider something unpalatable. To watch this movie is to enter not just another world of food, but another world entirely. It allows us a look at highly specialized, highly localized cultural isolates absolutely jam-packed with flavor accrued over centuries of natural fermentation. It's unbelievable how these folks really lived and operated in their own world for so long, and we owe Les Blanc an enormous debt for capturing this world as it was in the pre-internet era. All of the Cajun cooks featured in the film are men, and all of the Creole cooks featured are women. I don't think this is a coincidence, and if any NYC Foodways viewers have ideas as to why this is, please drop some knowledge on the subject. As ridiculous as it may sound, the key thing to keep in mind is that this film exists. I get giddy just thinking about it. Until the end of time, or perhaps until the end of the world-spanning techno-capitalist industrial system, this jewel box of a film is there for the viewing. These traditional cultural pathways through food, somewhat on the wane in the current year and headed towards God knows where in the coming decades, are accessible, only visually, yes, but accessible nonetheless, to anyone willing to sit still for 30 minutes. Yum 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 is the best kind of documentary, a narrow focus into a wide world with an absence of pretense on either side of the camera. The food, music, language, and culture of the Cajuns are inextricably linked, and to watch this movie is to observe that each part cannot be separated from another, something I find mind-blowing in our current era of mass cultural homogenization. Cajun music, unique to the American soundscape, is often about the gathering, preparation, and consumption of food local to the land of Acadiana. It's sung in Cajun French, and it's performed by Cajuns. It's all one thing, and I find it valuable beyond measure. Mark Savoy, the featured player of this film, has something to say on the subject by way of discussion of roux, the flour and fat mixture that forms the base of many Cajun dishes. Roux is the same thing as your backbone. If you didn't have a backbone, you'd fall on the floor. And roux is the backbone of the gumbo. Take music away from the Cajuns, and you don't have any culture. And if you take the roux away from the gumbo, you ain't got gumbo. Nice analogy, right? The Cajuns are natural raconteurs. Their storytelling prowess is remarkable, and this movie sports a number of tales, some tall, generally about food, that can accurately be described as Cajun humor. It's dry and wholesome, and delivered always with a straight face. Cajuns are my kind of people. They give zero about eating frog, gator, offal, innards, and anything else they can get their hands on. They garden, farm, fish, and clearly have a deep and abiding respect and love for the earth, for themselves, for their traditions, and for one another. I think we'll end this meal with some more words from Mark Savoy on the importance of tradition and heritage when handling what we wish to pass on to future generations. What it looks like when somebody doesn't really give a damn about something. Well, I think I'm going to add a little bit of this. Well, that's never really been done before. Or I'm going to add a little bit of this, or I'm going to put this note here instead. And I'm not against anything changing, because I think the natural process, the natural way of living and dying just changes things enough. But when you really love something, whether it's cooking a bowl of gumbo or a pot full of sauce piquante or playing a pretty two-step or waltz, if you really love it, you're going to try to do it just like the person you heard it from or tasted it. To me, when you really love something for what it is, you leave it alone. Now those are words to live by. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week for another episode of NYC Foodways. Peace.